doubles and triples. I mean, that's not just not really swinging. I mean, that's getting out there.
Well, he had 90 extra base. He had
Right.
90 extra base hits. I mean, he slugged 620 while hitting 419. That's absurd.
Yes, it is.
It's absurd.
Yes, it is.
148 runs scored. It's just too good. 367 total bases. You could just go on and on. It's one of the most. If you show that, it's so anomalous now. But if you show that to somebody in 200 years, they really just be like, "What?
Yeah.
How?
Not possible.
Not possible."
It is Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. So here's what's the deal. Go onto your Twitter, at Gus Tutel. Follow there. At 102.9 ESPN. Follow there. We will be giving away a dozen wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern as soon as we go to this break. We're going to do it right now. First people to respond are going to get them. By the way, the Desperado, they are open for business. They're over there on South Russell, right across the street from the YMCA. You call this phone number, 549-9651. You ready for that again? Okay, for the Desperado, 549-9651. Everything to go, ready to go, a hot meal for you, great burgers, great steaks. Really, truly, like it's not. You think I'm lying to you? I've had plenty of steaks and burgers at Desperado to speak to you about this. Okay, 549-9651. You go pick it up to go, and obviously the best wings in the city of Missoula, according to you, the buying and tasting public. $1 off burgers for as long as this quarantine lasts as well. So it's a great deal. Call the Desperado right now across the YMCA on South Russell and get your to-go orders. Don't worry about dinner tonight, tomorrow, whatever it is. Get it all taken care of by them down there. 549-9651. On the other side, our ESPN Roundtable with the defensive coordinator of the Montana State Bobcats, Kane Ione.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Tummy likey. Tummy want wingy.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
Hey, Missoula. This is Brian over here at the Desperado, your king of wings. The Desperado crew is cooking up all your favorite delicious menu items daily from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. for your curbside pickup delivery. When you place your order, give us your model and your color of your rig, and we'll get it out to you as soon as possible. We are also running a great $1 off burger special every day until we get unsequestered. And a great gift certificate special. Buy a $50 gift certificate, and we'll throw in a free wing card for your next order of wings. Give us a call at 549-9651. Stay healthy, my friends. Thank you for your support. We'll see you soon.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. The high school spring sports remain alive in 28 states. That includes Montana. Last week, as you may have heard, the Montana High School Association met to discuss either a continued suspension or possibly canceling spring sports. They decided to extend their suspension through April 24th, which is the day that Governor Bullock has marked to decide whether or not he's going to close schools for the remainder of the year. If schools do not return to in-person instruction by May 4th, according to MHSA Executive Director Mark Bettman, they will shut down spring sports for the duration of the season.
Last Thursday, Arkansas, Louisiana, Maine, Missouri, and Pennsylvania became the latest states to cancel high school sports. Oregon canceled last Wednesday, while Wyoming made it official on Tuesday. Spring sports in Washington and South Dakota have also been canceled, but North Dakota, Idaho, Montana suspended, not canceled, so there's still hope.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is the nation's top infectious disease expert and one of the faces of the United States fight against the coronavirus. He says the only way that professional sports will happen this summer is by holding events without fans in attendance and by keeping players in hotels. Fauci said he thought there would be enough interest from fans around the country to watch games, even if they could not attend in person.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hour number 2 gets off with a bang. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Outstanding to be with you on this very fine Wednesday afternoon. And we continue our ESPN Roundtable series, this time with the defensive coordinator, the Montana State Bobcat football team, Kane Ioane. Hey, if you missed anything in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. The podcast available everywhere. Well, on every podcasting platform that you use. Go check it out. Search, subscribe, review, rate the Tutel Nuanez podcast. Download that every single weekday and get us when you want us. The podcast available thanks to Blackfoot. Also, yes, I want to add this. If you want to listen live, you can do that too. On the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. You go to the website, you check out the stream available all the time. Thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Colter, we were able to sit down and do our first ever Zoom interview today with Kane Ioane. He was a 4-time All-American as a safety for Montana State, one of the great Bobcat players, and went into coaching and has been, basically in coaching the whole way through as well. And at this point is like a 15-year coaching veteran, including 2 years ago, having spent 3 years, if that makes sense, at Washington, at the University of Washington with Pete Kukowski and the now head coach Jimmy Lake and the then head coach Chris Peterson, and then returns to Montana State and to Jeff Choate's staff, and just finished his first year as the defensive coordinator and is heading into his second year now as the defensive coordinator. But really appreciate his time. It was a fairly long interview because why not? What else are we doing? You got a guy who's also great to talk to.
There's no timer on the thing. There's a time limit on the Zoom calls, but that doesn't have a timer on it. You have to press stop, and I didn't want to interrupt the interview, so I had no idea how long we were going, but we were just rolling. So what we've done here is split this up into 2 parts for you, but I think it's worth listening to. I mean, he's great to talk to, and we certainly appreciate his time. But also, I think tremendously insightful on all kinds of things, from the personnel side of this, which we'll get into in the next segment, to just the overarching coaching side of this. Obviously, the setting of all of this and trying to sort it out and where we're at now. But plenty to go through with Kane Ioane in this interview. And it's so easy to remember Montana State in the recent history of the Bobcats because of their offense, specifically their quarterbacks. They've had several of the best quarterbacks, not under Jeff Choate, but
Dakota Prukop.
I mean, you talk about Travis Lulay is an all-time great quarterback in Big Sky Conference history, one of only 14 guys in college football history to throw for 10,000 and rush for 1,000 yards in their careers. Went on to become an MVP of the Canadian Football League. Talk about Denarius McGee, the winningest quarterback in Montana State history, one of the 5 winningest quarterbacks in the Big Sky Conference's history, led Montana State to 3 straight Big Sky Conference championships. He was the 2-time Offensive Player of the Year and probably would have been 3-time if he wouldn't have got hurt his senior year. Then there's Dakota Prukop, who then ended up grad transferring to Oregon. But Montana State, because so much of the Butte roots, starting with Jim Sweeney at the beginning of the Big Sky Conference era in 1963, all the way through then Sonny Holland and Sonny Lubick, the Bobcats were all about defense. They were all about toughness. And things got all sorts of haphazard in the 80s because of a bunch of different things. It was a bad decision to fire Sonny Lubick. They hired Dave Arnold. It looked like a bad decision. Dave Arnold catches lightning in a bottle. Montana State goes 1-10 and then wins the 1984 national championship and then goes 2-9 the next year. And it's one of the most anomalous seasons that we've ever seen, but they deserve credit for that. But then when Dave Arnold was fired in 1986 after raising the bar, they hire Earl Salmonson, and Earl Salmonson was a disastrous hire. He had so much success at North Dakota State. It was not. He tried to come to Montana State and run the triple option, the Veer option rather. He stopped recruiting Montana kids. And at the same time, Montana had just hired Don Reed, and they built Washington Grizzly Stadium, and the rest is history, at least in terms of the modern era. 16 Cat Grizz wins in a row for the Grizzlies. But that's why Kane Ioane is such an iconic person in Montana State history, as well as absolutely the bridge between the successes of the past, because people that are old enough to remember that it was Montana State that dominated the Grizzlies during the first part of the Big Sky Conference era.
Right.
Then Don Reed flipped that on its head completely. Montana rises to become one of the great football programs in the entire country, multiple national championships, 7 national championship game appearances. But in 2000, when Mike Kramer took the Montana State job, and Kane Ione out of Billings Skyview was one of his number 1 recruits, I think a lot of people connected to Montana State football wondered if the Bobcats would ever beat the Grizzlies again. And that defense that Kane played on, the D-block defense as they would call it, those guys were so lights out. Like, those guys could have won multiple Big Sky Conference championships, and they did end up sharing the 2002 and 2003 championships after beating the Grizz, snap the streak in 2002, snap it, and then win a second straight Cat Grizz game in 2003. But they would have had some quarterback play then. Travis Luleo obviously was there, but during that early 2000s, man, they were so lights out on defense with so many great players. And that's why Sonny Holland, one of the great Bobcats of all time, calls Kane Ione the greatest Bobcat of all time, a 4-time All-American player. Well, then Ione got a front row seat to watch the rise and fall of Mike Kramer, the rise and fall of Rob Ashe, the early rise of Jeff Choate, and then he leaves, and now he comes back, and he just has had a front row seat, but also a very close tie to the program, and he is the tie that binds the whole thing. To have that close of a connection with one place for 20 years, incredibly rare in college football this day and age, and that's why his perspective is so profound.
Well, enjoy our ESPN Roundtable today, part 1 with Kane Ione.
Welcome into the ESPN Roundtable presented by Paradise Falls, and happy now to be joined by the second-year defensive coordinator, Montana State, and former, all-year All-American Kane Ione. Kane, thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you guys having me on, and looking forward to this, man. And hey, I'm surviving just like everybody else, day to day, and just adjusting to what is the new normal, essentially.
That's right. Well, you have the distinction of being our first ever Zoom interview, so congratulations there. We're breaking new ground.
Wow.
Appreciate you being here. Look, before we get into the present, let's get into just the past a little bit, especially this past year, returning to Montana State for like the third time, but this time in the role of being the guy defensively. An unbelievable season that you had, and some really great players for sure. Some guys who now have graduated. But what was this like to come back to Montana State and be wearing that hat and have the run that you guys did have?
It was everything that I was hoping it would be when I made the decision to leave the University of Washington and come back. It was a whirlwind initially. Anytime you get going in January and you run into the spring ball and then sun, it just felt like, holy cow, August was on you fast. But fortunately, the thing that the transition was made a lot easier because of my familiarity, obviously, first and foremost with our head guy, Coach Choate, and then secondly with our defensive staff, Coach Hout, Coach Kyle Reisinger, and Coach Daly, bringing him on board. And so the familiarity with what they had been doing for the previous couple years and what I had seen or been a part of in 2016, and then everything that I wanted to get done as far as going forward, I just felt like that helped quite a bit with the transition. And then just going through the season, man, it was awesome. The thing that I really appreciated the most about this team and the defense was just how the guys just continued to get better week in and week out. And it just felt like we played our best ball in November, and then obviously through December as well, through that playoff run. And they just kept getting better and better. And that was, because of obviously the players and their attitudes, their attention to detail, their ability to just continue every week to want to get better. And then obviously a tribute to our coaching staff, starting from our head guy down.
Heading into that game against North Dakota State in the playoffs, I did a statistical analysis of your guys' defense from the North Dakota game through NDSU. And if you took away the trick play that North Dakota ran for a touchdown, took away one long run, I think that I can't remember. I think it was Sacramento or that Southern Utah had. You take away a pick six that Northern Colorado had, and you take away the long bomb that Juwan Green scored on against Albany. You take away those 4 plays, and I think you guys were giving up 4.9 points and something like 175 total yards. I mean, you take out like the 4 big plays, and it was as locked down a defense as you can possibly get. And you mentioned those guys getting better. 2-part question. How much of a turning point was that loss at North Dakota? Because you guys, you destroyed people after that.
Yeah.
And two, what's the process like to get a team to steadily improve and then explosively improve like you guys did?
Mm-hmm. No, and I go back to, granted, obviously that North Dakota game was kind of the turning point to a certain extent, but it really was Sac State that for us as a defense, we knew that we had to get better. We had played some decent ball up to that point, minus the Texas Tech game where obviously they did what they did and showed us what we needed to improve upon going forward. But the Sac State game really opened our eyes as a defensive staff, and myself in particular. I knew I had to get better, and whether it was just how I was approaching things, how we were approaching things entirely as a defensive staff, we had to figure out ways in which we could utilize the best 11 and schematically figure out new things that we could implement without blowing minds. And so that's where the Sac State game was really huge in that regard. And we had the entire bye week for me to just stay in office and really hone in on what we needed to get better between myself and Coach Choate, and then our defensive staff really helping in that regard as well within each position group. Hey, this is the points of emphasis for our position group in order for us to take the next step to get better. And so North Dakota was kind of the game where we were like, okay, let's see what this bye week and our adjustments that we've made, what they've done and how they've helped us. And we felt coming out of that game, despite the loss, we felt like defensively we saw improvements. And, like you said, you hit on we gave up one touchdown that game as far as the trick play is concerned. And we gave up a few big explosive plays or run game plays and some things schematically that we needed to tweak. But going forward, that game just kind of gave us more and more confidence to really start pushing towards that run that we made. And again, I think it comes back to the ability of our staff to make sure that week in and week out, we were making the adjustments we needed to on how we were approaching practice, how we were approaching our meetings, just trying to tweak and make sure every week there we stayed fresh with what we were doing. So the players just felt like, man, we're finding ways, we have answers, we're getting better. And in turn, the players' attitudes and the way they went about their business matched that as well. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the other aspect that I can't not mention is just the fact that we have great leaders as well. Right. You talk about some of the players that you hit on earlier, as far as the Braden Conkles, the Bryce Sturks, Josh Hill, a very underrated player and leader within our group, and then Derek Marks, another guy that really goes untalked about sometimes, but the impact that he had within our locker room, within that defensive front in particular, we had some really good leadership for guys that just within the locker room, away from coaches, kept the thing pushing forward the way we needed it to.
You mentioned that Texas Tech game, and I guess if you can't beat them, join them. You bring in Justin Udy, and he's the new OC, which has got to be, you got to be pumped about that at some level. But I'm interested, a lot of times people think about football, you got the defensive side, you got the offensive side, and never the twain shall meet, right? Mm-hmm. But we know that it's an integrated game, especially now when you take a look at what you've seen out of him and what he wants to do. I'm sure you guys have talked and looked at, game plans and schemes and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What do you expect and what do you need to do defensively as a coach to prepare for this season with the new offense that's coming in terms of what you know so far, obviously having not even yet been able to get on the field to try and install anything?
Yeah, exactly. No, first off, we're very excited to have Coach Udy join our staff, and I think he's going to be a great addition. He already has been a great addition over the course of how many months he's been with us. Like you said, anytime you can bring a guy on the staff that's been a part of the prolific offenses that he's been a part of, both at Utah State and then again at Texas Tech, and having seen firsthand what those offenses are capable of doing, it gets you excited as far as what he can bring as far as the different elements to an already really good offense we had coming back. Just talking about our offense's ability to really control the game as far as the run game is concerned, and what we're capable of doing up front, and what we're the similar situation where I felt like our offense just kept getting better over the course of the year. And now you add in some of these elements that I think are going to be make a tough combination for any defense to prepare for. And so for us, we don't really talk too much as far as, well, this is what they're going to do change wise, schematically, or whatever they may be doing. What we really talk about always is, as a team, it's always about the wins and losses. It has nothing to do with, statistically speaking, defensively, we were this, and this. Offensively, we're this, and it's always the main objective, or the main statistic we are always looking for is the win-loss column. And whatever we can do defensively to get the wins on Saturday, and whatever offensively they're going to do to get those wins, that's what we always talk about as a staff and as a team, is that ultimate goal, that ultimate prize. We're not in this thing for stats as much as obviously those are resume builders and things of that nature. The ultimate stat for all of us is those the W's in the win column.
Well, that's the most fascinating part about the evolution of college football over the last 15 years, right? Is the relationship between offenses and defenses. And
yeah,
I mean, Montana State's a great example, right? I mean, when you guys went to the Tim Cramsey offense, all gas, no brakes. I mean, Krams might be scoring an 80-yard touchdown every other play. That's great for the offensive stats, but now the defense has been on the field for 20 of the last 22 plays because, even if they're playing okay, it skews the defensive statistics, right? So from that element, though, I mean, you guys were so good on defense talent-wise and execution-wise last year, but you also are with an offense that leads the Big Sky Conference in rushing, grinds the clock. So, I mean, what's that relationship like? What's it like calling plays for a team that does prioritize running the ball and helps the defense out?
Yeah, that's what I loved about our entire situation, and why I thought we had the success we did as we continue to progress through the year is that we were always on the same page as an entire unit. And again, that stems from the head guy. That stems from the head guy making sure that he implements and make sure that all of us, starting within our staff room, understand what it takes for our team to win any given Saturday. And there may be a week that defensively, hey guys, you guys got to hold them to this, and this in order for us to be successful. You need to create this many takeaways. If we can get the ball to our offense, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe it's, hey, offensively this week, we need to slow this pace down as much as we can. We need to make sure UC Davis, for example, doesn't get the ball however many times. And you saw what happened there in the second half, where our offense was able to really control the line of scrimmage. Defensively, we were able to get off the field on third downs and hold them whenever they got into the red zone. We did a good job of keeping them away out of the end zone, essentially. And on the flip side, like I said, the offense in the fourth quarter and the second half in general just controlled the clock, punched it in there when they got in the red zone. And in turn, you saw that was the main difference in that win, and a huge road win for us at UC Davis. And so that just speaks volumes of what it takes to be successful nowadays. Is you've got to have both sides of the ball and your special teams always working together as one cohesive unit, or else it's just not going to work.
Ken Ione joining us. It is the ESPN Roundtable. Ken, the defensive coordinator of Montana State, heading into his second year with that title. Now, it's interesting. You were with Jeff Choate the first year that he took over, linebackers coach, assistant head coach, and then you go to Washington, and you are there with Pete Kokowski and Jimmy Lake and so on, Chris Peterson, of course, as well. What did you learn in those 2 years? Because you're a lifer, man. Like, you're an All-American football player. You've been coaching now a decade, even prior to that. And then you go to this, to Washington. What do you see and get there that now you are bringing back to Bozeman?
Mm-hmm. And that's I think was the best thing about, just like you said. I mean, you said lifer for sure. And I don't want to consider myself a lifer. I'm a lifer as far as I'm going to be a Bobcat for the rest of my life, no matter where I end up. I'm always going to be a Bobcat. And that for sure, I'm a lifer in that regard. I was a lifer up to that point, as far as I had not been anywhere else to see what programs are doing outside of what had been happening in Bozeman, Montana.
And I guess I should clarify, my lifer comment is just from a football standpoint. I mean, you've been in the sport, right? You've been doing it. So, what could you possibly need to learn? It's all in the dome, man.
No, and that's it. And so, like I said, man, just for me to get away from Bozeman was it's such a drastic, important step for me to take. And the opportunity had just not come to that point, up to that point that I felt there had been other opportunities. They just weren't in my heart. Like, I'm going to take this opportunity. When Washington came calling, there was no way I was going to turn that down. and especially to just be a part of a staff like you mentioned. I mean, the names that you mentioned there, the staff that they have out there was just awesome, second to none. And so it provided me with an experience that I had not gotten as far as just seeing a program inside and out that was just drastically different from what I've been accustomed to. And just seeing it at that level as well, the Power 5 level, and kind of seeing how a Power 5 football program runs. And it really opened my eyes to what Coach Choate was trying to implement in 2016 when he first got to Montana State, because of his experience at the Power 5 and his way of doing things and what he was accustomed to. The FCS has not really seen that. And so, and I had not really been a part of that.
What's the biggest difference? Like, what is happening at the Power 5? I mean, we know about the money and the facilities and that kind of thing, but what are they doing organizationally that's different than what happens at the FCS?
I think, they just have the ability to have so many more resources for their student athletes. They have the ability. I mean, you mentioned the money. The money is obviously a big part of that in order to have those resources available for their student athletes. And then the structure in which they can have different aspects of your staff. You've got a recruiting department, essentially. You've got an entire strength and conditioning, just army of coaches and interns. And then you've got this a whole nother function as far as nutritional value, academic. I mean, so you've just got these different areas that for us, we have that. We just don't have it at the magnitude that they do. And I think just their ability to make there's literally no excuses for a Power 5 student athlete to not be successful in one shape or form. Granted, they all aren't going to be All-Americans or NFL draft picks, but they all should be able to get their degree and be able to function somewhat at that level. And so I think Choate brought that same type of philosophy to us as far as, hey, let's eliminate as many excuses as we possibly can for our student athletes to be successful. And I think that's what I appreciated the most about what his approach has been. And it just amped that up even more when I went to Washington and saw where he was coming from, essentially, and what they're able to do for their student athletes, the resources they provide them, and really, again, eliminating any excuses for their student athletes to be successful. As far as the overall football thing, as far as answering your question, as far as what I could learn football-wise, that's the great thing about this profession. And what I love about it so much is that there's always something that you can learn, and there's always ways that you can get better. Granted, when it's all said and done, football is still football, right? Cover 2 is still cover 2, cover 3 is still cover 3, cover 4, all these. But there's small little details within a coverage, within a front, within any defensive scheme, X's and O's wise, that you can learn new ways to implement different little tweaks and details here and there that are just going to make you that much better. For me, it was also just seeing how other coaches were approaching meetings, how other coaches approached recruiting, how other coaches approached how they're connecting with players. There's just so many different things that you can learn from any given situation that you're in. And I thought that being at the University of Washington really helped me in that regard in every one of those aspects. And so that's where I felt like I was able to come back and really have a better grasp of the big picture of what I wanted defensively. But not only that, but also the implementation of that big picture piece by piece.
We had Coach Choate on a little less than 2 weeks ago now, and I thought one of the most interesting comments he said that, hey, losing spring ball, it is what it is. You lose some reps. Our veteran guys are happy. Our young guys maybe chomping at the bit. But regardless, he said the thing I think is the most important part about the offseason is continuing to fortify, continuing to build culture, continuing to install that leadership. And I know to me, talking to the guys that make it to their 4th and 5th years of his program, that's the place you can see. I mean, you look at guys like Logan Jones or Braden Conklin. I know those kids when they were in high school, and now they're men. And Choate had a huge influence in that. All you guys had huge influences in that. But what do you think of that element, just his ability to cultivate, maturity in young men and teach things beyond just football?
Yeah, that is, to me, one of his biggest strengths and assets as a head guy. And that's something that I admire about him, and something that I'm trying to learn from him as much as I can as well is how he's able to implement culture, how he's able to really point everything in the same direction and get everybody moving in the same direction. And that's a hard thing to do for any organization. whether it's a football program, whether it's a business, whatever it may be, to get everybody on the same page and moving in the same direction, and not having people going this, there, and that, dragging people off task. And in turn, now your organization is kind of bouncing around, and that's where you see that inconsistency. And he's able to just continuously point people in the right direction and to continuously point everybody back towards our culture and what our values are as a team. And I think that is another reason why our guys were able to continue to get better and better last year as the season progressed. And I think that's why, despite the setback or this adversity that we're facing as far as not having spring ball, not being around our guys, we're still going to, when we get back together, we're still going to be fine. And we're still going to be raring to go. And our culture is going to be stronger than this adversity.
So he is absolutely one of the most compelling speakers I've ever been around. I mean, he's so captivating, and he speaks with such conviction. His Monday press conferences for us are just must see. I mean, you never know. He's going to come there with 2 pages of notes. He lays it down. He talks for 15 minutes before you even ask him a question. But I mean, just working for a guy like that, though, that has so much passion. I mean, it must be fun for you guys to hear him talk and then just to hear him inspire the kids.
Oh, there's no question, man. That part of it again, because he's not just inspiring to the kids. He's inspiring to everybody involved, regardless if it's a staff meeting at 6:30 in the morning, and because we're going out to practice that morning, he's still going to come in there with that same set jolt of energy for all of us as a staff to make sure that when we go out there on the practice field or within our meeting room, that we've got that same sense of urgency, that same sense of conviction for our guys that he does. And I think that's just huge. It's got to be a top-down deal as far as everything. You can't speak culture and not live culture. And Schultz, a guy that lives exactly what he preaches every single day, and he just is who he is. I think that's why that's why he comes off as such a speaker with conviction, is because everything he talks about, he truly believes, and he lives that every day. He is who he is. And anytime that you have that, your values in order and in place like that, you can talk for hours because you've got such a passion for what you're talking about, because it's just who you are.
There you go. Part 1 with the defensive coordinator, the Montana State Bobcats, Kenai Ohn, joined us on the Zoom earlier today. We appreciate that very much. Spent a lot of time covering a lot of the career stuff and what's going on now at Montana State. Next, though, get into some personnel. Who's gone, who's coming back on the defensive side of the ball, and what does he expect of the 2020 Montana State Bobcats? We'll get to that right after this.
Whether you're shopping for your first home, need something bigger, or downsizing for retirement, you need a mortgage. Talk to the experts at Farmers State Bank or start the application process online at farmersebank.com. Our mortgage lenders have many options to help you into the home of your dreams, from conventional to in-house, VA, rural development, and more. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Want to drink wine and help the Roxy Theater and the Historical Museum at Fort Missoula? Then head on over to 10spoon.com and order 2 bottles of Roxy Fire White Wine 2-pack, and they'll donate $2 to the Roxy Theater and $2 to the Historical Museum at Fort Missoula. The Roxy Fire White Wine is a gorgeous bottle of dry Riesling from 10 Spoon Winery. Support a local business that supports local nonprofits. Visit 10spoon.com for more info and to have this 2-pack delivered to your front door. 10 Spoon Winery, locally owned in the beautiful Rattlesnake area of Missoula.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Well, Colter Nuanez, there's some sports news for you. The high school spring sports remain alive in 28 states, including Montana. Last week, the Montana High School Association met to discuss either continued suspension or cancellation of spring sports. The MHA ultimately decided to extend the suspension and not cancel, at least through April 24th. They will cancel, however, if in-person school instruction does not resume across the state by May 4th. That's according to MHSA Executive Director Mark Bettman. Last week, Montana Governor Steve Bullock pushed back Montana's K-12 school closures through April 24th due to the COVID-19 virus.
Last Thursday, Arkansas, Louisiana, Maine, Missouri, and Pennsylvania became the latest states to cancel high school sports Oregon canceled last Wednesday. Wyoming made it official on Tuesday. Spring sports in Washington and South Dakota have also been canceled, but North Dakota, Idaho, and Montana not canceled yet.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert and one of the faces of the United States fight against the coronavirus, says the only way for professional sports to happen this summer is by holding events without fans in attendance and keeping the players in hotels. Fauci said that he thought there would be enough interest from fans to watch games even if they could not attend.
Finally, President Donald Trump, who's regularly received input from Fauci, said that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, we ran out of time. They're all helping him out.
I mean, you win some, you lose
yeah,
some.
It's like
you got out
to hit
over
a
your
buzzer beater, but
skis.
then you realize you got too many words in front of you.
No.
I'll tell you, President Trump, he's including figures from the sports world, including NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, to help shape Trump's plan to reopen the coronavirus-battered economy.
Okay. Thank you, Coulter. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's a Wednesday. Happy to be with all of you out there. At Gus Tutel on Twitter, at 102.9 ESPN, at Skyline Sports MT. If you are looking for us, we appreciate that very much. We just finished hearing part one of our interview with Kane Ioane, the defensive coordinator of the Montana State Bobcats. We're now going to get into part two, which has a couple different things in it, but centrally, Coulter hinges on personnel on the defensive side of the ball, guys who graduated, a great defensive class that's gone, but still a lot of talent coming in. It's actually a pretty nice mix if you consider it for Montana State. Like, you want to graduate great players. Like, that's the idea, is that they get great, but then when they're gone, how do you replace them? But it's not like they're losing 9 starters. You know, they're losing a handful of really key guys, but they also have a handful of guys who've been either key contributors or big players in their own right still coming back.
Entering Jeff Choate's 5th season, it's certainly very apparent that the priority he put on recruiting the offensive and defensive lines has come to fruition. Now it remains to be seen if they can continue to reload, but it appears as if they can. 2 years ago, they lost 3 outstanding defensive linemen in Tucker Yates, Zach Wright, and Tyrone Faunono. All 3 of those guys were all Big Sky players, and they were even better on the D-line last year with Bryce Stirk, Derek Marks anchor in the way. But now they still have Amandre Williams in the fold. He was an all Big Sky guy on the edge last year. They still have Chase Benson in the fold, which Chase Benson will be my pick for preseason All-League at defensive tackle this year. They do lose Josh Hill from the inside linebacker spot, but they got Callahan O'Reilly, their leading tackler, coming back. They also got Nolan Askelson, who had a pretty good redshirt freshman year a year ago. And then, of course, they have Troy Anderson, and they can platoon him with Daniel Hardy, who really
if Kane Ioane can win an arm wrestling contest against Justin Udy, which you'll hear a little bit about as well.
No doubt, but they still got Kane Ioane and Daniel Hardy at that Sam linebacker spot. They do lose Jackway Allen, Braden Conkle, and JoJo Henderson from safety, but they groomed Ty Okada to be one of the dudes there. And I also know they really like Rylan Norton. There's some good comments here about Rylan Norton, 2 Missoula Sentinel guy who was a quarterback as well as a state champion javelin thrower, Missoula Sentinel. But they're really high on him. Choate loves him. Kane loves him. Really smart player. And then the other thing is that Montana State last year, as good as they were on defense, they actually got by being pretty much decimated at the cornerback spot. Tyrell Thomas really hasn't been healthy since his true freshman year. He did gut it out and contributed at a high level last year. Damian Washington is a nickel guy who was playing on the outside quite a bit last year. He was able to mask a lot of that, and they put him in a good position to succeed. But he's not like your burner-type corner. He's way more of a zone cushion-type corner. They didn't have their best man-to-man guy, who's Greg Munchie-Filer. He's back. Tyrell Thomas, hopefully healthy. He's back. So where are you at? And then they've also put a high priority on recruiting that position. And as we know, ability and athleticism resonate as much at cornerback as any other spot. A lot of times it's not about how many reps you got. It's just about how fast can you run?
Yeah.
And so I think that Montana State, even though they do lose, count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4 first-team All-Big Sky players, they still have a chance to be pretty darn good on defense. But that's to be expected when that's the way you build your program.
Well, here we go. Our interview with Kane Ioane on the Zoom, part 2. Enjoy.
You had an unbelievable senior class defensively, especially from a leadership standpoint. And then, of course, outstanding players as well. You still, though, have a really solid group coming back. When you take a look at what you need to replace, though, what's going to be the biggest quote unquote holes to fill? Like, what are the things that you need to prepare to do just personnel wise heading into this next season?
I think up front, everything starts up front. We tell our D-line that, and it's not just to get their heads big and whatever. It's the reality of the game is you've got to have a great front in order to be successful as an entire unit defensively. And so we've got to obviously replace some production up front and some really dynamic players. Bryce Sterk, that obviously comes to mind right off the jump when you think of production with the amount of sacks and TFLs and just overall production that we got out of him. We've got to replace that one way, shape, or form. And that could be, you don't necessarily have to do it with just one guy, because that's not realistic when it's all said and done. But you got to figure out, okay, well, if it's not one guy, then maybe it's a couple guys that we feel we can rotate in and out and still get the same production. Maybe it's schematically we do something a little bit different to take advantage of the strengths of the guys we have in our room in order to get that production. So there's a couple different ways we're looking at how we can replace that. Derek Marks, I mentioned him earlier. He's another guy that we're going to miss tremendously. Really his leadership more than anything. But he was one of the better defensive tackles in the country, in my opinion, and just really a guy that was so unselfish, the way he was able to move from an outside end to an inside defensive tackle and had a really productive year. So we're going to miss that ability of his versatility. But we've got some young guys in the program that I think we'll be able to replace him with. Big Scrempos, just a big body, another guy rotation-wise. But we feel like we do have some young guys, the development range that I think can help replace him, whether it's just the one guy or two or three guys that essentially can help replace those two inside guys. And then we'll figure out some pieces that will move around. You got a Madre Williams back that I think is one of the better edge defenders in our conference. Daniel Hardy, who showed flashes of being another guy, both athletic ability, length, just a guy that I think can develop into a really productive player for us this year. And so between those two guys and hopefully another piece that shows up, we can potentially replace those guys up front.
Now, are you sending care packages to Coach Choate and sort of like locking Justin Udy in his office for rights to Troy Anderson on the defensive side? Like, how does the tug of war go for how many snaps you're going to get with him as opposed to the other?
Yeah. And you know, Udy knew that going into the interview process. I told him from the jump, man, I said, hey, get your mind right, because we're going to have some competitions in order to fight for the right for Troy, right. Whether it's a physical type of competition or whatever it may be. But he understood that from the jump. So him and I are going to work out the details of what those competitions are going to look like. I feel good about my prospect. I've been hitting 100 push-ups a day.
Nice.
Quarantine, man. So I'm staying on top of it. And so the challenge is out there, man. But obviously, I mean, Troy's a talent that, everyone knows what the ability that Troy has. And it's very, very obviously what Troy can do. And I'm excited about Troy potentially getting a chance to play that much more defense over the course of his career, because I feel like Troy has been a guy that over the course of his you go back all the way to high school, never really settled on just one position. And I think as we progress and we get him more and more comfortable in what he's doing defensively, man, you're going to see his numbers go even higher. And you saw that as the season progressed last year with him, as he played more of his true outside linebacker position for us defensively. He just got better and better week in and week out. And when he played full games, his production was ridiculous. I mean, he had however many tackles for loss, how many sacks a game, week in and week out over that course of that stretch that he was playing primarily defensive ball. And so that's why I'm hitting the push-ups, pull-ups, all that stuff, man. So I can make sure we get a majority of him on our side of the ball.
Got to ask about the back end, especially the safeties, because I thought that the adjustment you guys made to go more of the big nickel and get JoJo Henderson on the field at the same time as Jackway Allen and Braden Conkle was a huge adjustment last year. I thought it paid huge dividends for you. And obviously Conkle, not only his talent, but just the edge he plays with, what he brings. That's hard to replace. But those other two guys were phenomenal athletes too. Where are you guys at with the safety position? I know Ty Okada's moved around a little bit. It seems like he really came on strong at the end of last year. But what's that position look like, and who are some young guys you were looking – I mean, because you're coaching safeties now too, so who are some guys you were looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, man, and a really good point, and it's something that I think underrated move that we were able to make last year was the being able to get JoJo on the field as much as we could. We're a personnel driven defense. It's not necessarily about scheme as much as about the guys out there. And so getting JoJo out there majority of the time, or as much as we possibly could, was an adjustment that we had to make just because of what he was able to do for us, and allowed for all three of those guys to play multiple spots, which I thought really helped us. So we're going to miss all three of those guys, man. Obviously, Conkle being the All-American, the leader for us, four-year captain guy. We're going to miss him within the room and just his productivity. Quay being the ball hawk that he was, and just his ability to have some range in the back end. And then JoJo's just versatility we're going to miss all three of those guys in their own specific ways. But part of coaching is you've got to help develop guys within the room. So and part of last year that I thought was so important for the back end room was just raising our standard up in that room. And I think those three guys that you mentioned, and Damian Washington, another senior within that group, those guys helped raise that standard within our back end room. And so the back end secondary guys coming back, they all understand this is where we are now at, and we want to even take that higher. And so all of them have been working to make sure not only do we match that standard that those guys set, but now we're taking it to a whole new level, a whole new standard. And so you mentioned Ty Okada being a guy that's really took the reins as far as leadership is concerned within the room. He's a guy that's shown ability to be a playmaker when he's been on the field. We just got to keep him healthy a majority of the time so he can be out there a lot more than he has been in the last how many years. But he's a very productive, competitive. He's that quarterback of the defense type guy that, he won't stop communicating and talking, whether we're in the practice field, in the meeting room, whatever, man. I love that about him. He is going to communicate nonstop. Coach Choate always teases him about it, where he's going to say something regardless if he's right or wrong. And I love that about the kid, man. He's going to be a communicator, and that's what you need back there. So Ty's a guy that I'm anxious to get going on a regular, full-scale basis. We brought in a transfer from Oregon State, Jeffrey Manning, that has done an awesome job of just transitioning and acclimating to our group, understanding that his initial job was just to come in and show us that he wanted to be here and work hard and really acclimate himself to the room well. And he's done that and then some. So I'm excited about what he's able to bring to us, having played in the Power 5 or Pac-12 level. And then the young guy that I'm really excited about is Rylan Ort, right out of Missoula there. And he's a guy that had really shown signs of being a really good player for us throughout fall camp, and then just progressed as the season got going as far as scout team player of the year. Just a guy that is definitely going to help us on the teams. And then we want to factor into that rotation somehow, some way. And who knows, once fall camp hits and we get rolling, he's a guy that's going to compete and be out there quite a bit. And then you go corner-wise, I think that's a position that we've got a lot of talent, that's really young talent as well. And so I'm excited about what we have as far as our ability to play the tight coverage that we like to play here with some of our corners that we got coming back, with Tyrell Thomas being one of the top corners in the league coming back. Greg Munchie Filer, another guy that didn't play a whole lot of ball for us last year, but has played a lot of ball for us in the past. And so we're excited about those two guys. And then we got some young guys behind them, Eric Zambrano, Tyler Bohannon, Elijah Kane. I can go down the list of kind of unproven commodities. So I can't talk too much about them at this point, but they're definitely a group of young guys that I feel really good about.
Kane Ione joining us, defensive coordinator, Montana State Bobcat football team. And my last question from me, Kane, you've been a coach now long enough that you've coached guys and seen how their careers have gone, after you've coached them.
Yeah.
And, you talk about, Mac McNeil, Bobby Daly, but especially Alex Singleton, who ends up owning the CFL, is now the only graduate of any school in the state of Montana that's actually in the league playing for the Eagles. What's that like for you, and how satisfying to see that development happen for them professionally in the sport that you've been, their mentor and teacher in?
It's awesome, man. And really, when it's all said and done, man, you get in this thing to for me, I just want to have a positive influence on as many people as I can. And coaching provides that opportunity for me. And anytime you can see their development from their freshman year. That was what was so fun about being a part of the program for as long as I was able to go through however many classes and groups of guys. So you can see them develop from a freshman all the way through their senior year, watch them walk across the stage, get their diploma, and then in Alex's case, continue to just pursue this professional thing for as long as he has. And now to see the success in it for him to get back into the NFL, having, like you said, dominated the CFL for however many years, and now getting his opportunity in the NFL, man, it just speaks volumes of first off, of Alex and just his desire to be great. I think that was what set him apart from most kids, student athletes at the time, was just he'd made the choice to be great from the jump. And you could tell that that's what he wanted to do as you were recruiting the kid. And then he just continued to build on that over the course of his time here at MSU. And now he just continues to pursue it regardless of any setbacks or adversity, man. And that's what I'm most proud about is just, again, you hope you have positive influence on these kids. And now they're grown men doing the same thing, having positive influence. And there's so many of those guys out there that, man, I enjoy. I've had some Zoom meetings with some of these guys and over the course of this quarantine time and just getting the opportunity to see them blossom. You know, you got Jody Owens that I actually got to coach with at University of Washington that's doing really good things in the football ranks. Obviously, Bobby Daly and I get a chance to be in the same defensive staff room every single day. And so I get to see him continue to develop as a coach. Clay Bignell is another guy that's in somehow, and I don't know why they choose to get in this profession because it's a terrible profession. But somehow, man, they're doing really, really well. And there's so many guys that, again, that's why you get in this thing, is to see guys blossom, not only on the football field, but outside of the football realm. And when they get in their daily lives, and to see guys having positive impacts in their community, wherever they are, that's awesome to see. It always is.
Well, Kane, we certainly appreciate you being with us. Thanks for joining us on the roundtable. Good luck. The hardest profession, by the way, is having 2 kids under 2 years of age. So best of luck to you on that front. And then, of course, we can't wait for football to come back, man. Looking forward to it. Best to you in Bozeman, all right?
I appreciate that, man. And you hit it right on the head. That is definitely my biggest challenge right now going forward is getting my 2 kids to buy into our culture in the house.
Right.
Heard it put like that before. I don't know why. I mean, I talked to enough coaches. I should have heard something along those lines before. That's a great line. Try to get the kids to buy into our culture. That's what we're doing. That's parenting 101 right there. It's the baseline of what you're attempting to do.
If you know the great Cass Ione, Kane's dad, it's probably a line that he actually is stealing from his old man, because I can guarantee there was talks about the Ione family culture around dinner table quite often when they were growing up. Cass is a great coach within it. So, I mean, they're a coaching family, right? Kane's brother has coached hoops at Willamette for a long time, and Cass was a coach of many different sports in the Billings area, and he's a great guy. He was a Billings Skyview golf coach for a long time, and so just great people, man, great family, and really proud of Kane. Known Kane for a really long time, covered him for a really long time, and he's really coming to his own. I think he's he's always been an exceptional individual coach, position coach, and now I think he's a great defensive coordinator as well. So Montana State people should be happy to have him.
Well, we were certainly happy to have him on, and we'll continue with this stuff. In fact, we'll talk a little bit more about what it is that we're going to have for you in the coming days and weeks, as well as a little bit of NFL stuff as well right after this. I realize that
Do you or your business have audio needs? Missoula Broadcasting Company has you covered with full-service audio production studios, fully staffed with a suite of equipment with tools to produce professional studio-quality audio. Anything from podcasts to radio commercials, social media campaigns to audiobooks. If you can hear it, we can handle it. Missoula Broadcasting Company is your audio headquarters. For more rates and more information, call me, Colter Nuanez, at Missoula Broadcasting Company today at 406-721-6800.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
I am in a complete conundrum. I have tickets to Tool outstanding, Tickets to Rage in Portland, outstanding. Tickets to Rage in Tacoma, outstanding. And I don't know whether to ask for a refund, if I'm going to be, if these are even going to happen anymore. What is it that I'm supposed to do? It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. If you would like to find the show, it's available all the time on the podcast. Just go check Tutel and Nuanez wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate that very much. And you can go listen in at your leisure, thanks to Blackfoot. Blackfoot hooking us up with the podcast. I mean, what am I supposed to do with these concerts that I want to go to that I don't know what their status is?
Well, have they been postponed yet?
Well, yeah. I mean, they've all been. They're just like everything else. No one knows what they are. They're just this.
Have they been formally canceled yet?
I don't believe they've been formally canceled yet. No.
Okay, so Ticketmaster has quietly changed their refund policy in the wake of COVID.
Yeah.
And unless the event is actually properly canceled, no refunds will be issued.
Yeah. That may be a policy, but a policy is just sort of a guideline until two people get on the phone and speak to one another.
You're one of those guys, so you're going to call them up, I want my dang money right now. And they're going to say, well, sorry, sir, this is our policy. And then you're going to go, and then they're going to say, sorry, sir, it's our policy.
Yeah, my policy is not to be out hundreds of dollars while I wait a year and a half and they're making money and interest on the thing that I've given to them. That's
all
right.
a matter of perspective, yo. This is an investment in your future.
No question.
You got the tickets set
an
aside.
investment which I will remake at the appropriate time.
What do you mean remake? If you've already got the tickets, man, you're in business.
Actually, you want to know what my real issue is?
Tell me your real issue.
I fumbled horribly the buy on these.
Shocking.
Oh. I mean, what is it that I've ever messed up on something like this before that you expect this out of me?
Okay, so were you buying these from another human with cash?
No.
Of course you screwed it up.
Go through this point.
If you're using a computer or a cell phone or a card, it's all downhill for you. I have full confidence in your ability to buy any ticket to any show on the planet if it's you exchanging money with another person.
That's fair.
You could get anywhere. In terms of clicking the right buttons on the phone on the Ticketmaster site, no chance.
Well, they here's the thing. They put these things on sale at X time, right? 10 a.m., whatever it is. But then at 10 a.m., you actually got to click into the actual queue to buy. Like you don't just click them and then now you're buying them. You're clicking in and now you're waiting to get in.
Okay.
So the purchase begins at 10 a.m., but the ability to queue up to buy begins at 10 to 10, at 9:50, say, for example's sake.
Oh.
It's because this is like a big deal, right? And they know they're going to go fast, so they're trying to streamline this thing and do the thing because the system can only handle so many purchases at a time.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that, so I was prepared for 10 o'clock and then checked my browser again at like 9:55, and now I'm able to get into the queue. Well, now I'm so far back in that line that I was not able to purchase tickets on the floor, which is really, I mean, what else is the point if you're going to see Rage Against the Machine?
Coulter, clearly we're dealing with a guy here who has never gotten himself on a cruise and doesn't know how to get high-demand tickets.
Listen, I know how to get them.
Really?
They cost a lot more than I'm willing to pay for them.
You got to sell a remodeled camper in order to furnish yourself with the
what's up
concert
with the
tickets.
camper?
The camper awaits the sun.
Are you guys going to take it somewhere?
We might.
Can I have it?
You can buy it.
Can I live there?
No. Absolutely no.
Man.
The camper awaits the sun. Ryan, don't we all in this great state await the sun at this point?
Some of us await the snow.
Of all the people that Ryan Tutel has let live at his house, even with his children, and I'm not even allowed to live in the backyard.
It's a side yard, and that's right. That's right.
Where do you fall when it comes to the taking of vitamins? Are you a vitamin guy?
Such a good question. My wife is the biggest vitamin / Filipino concoction. You know, she is mixing up elderberries. Thrilled when she found out the neighbor would let her take the elderberries off of the neighbor's bush there to take
Jackpot.
it in, and like melts it all down and creates this stuff.
Wow.
Rubbing onions on the bottom of your feet, rubbing lemon rinds in your armpits, like all of the weird, like all of that stuff. I'm like, well, what are we eating for? Isn't that the point? Isn't that how you get your vitamin? Is in the pizza? It's there. Why am I wasting my time eating these things that taste like gasoline? So, no, I'm not really a vitamin guy. I also saw one thing one time that, says most of it just goes out in your urine. So, that's
it just depends on how the vitamins form. That's why you got to research the production of the actual vitamin.
I don't know. Now, the
it's
kids
like when
love them because they get the gummies. She's insisted they're going to have the gummy things.
Flintstones gummies.
Tell me this, okay? A vitamin, something that's supposed to be good for you, is now in the form of a sugary, gelatinous treat. Now, that's going to be a net benefit to your system. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Oh, man, it's just like when he had his old man physical, once you get to a certain old age, you got to have just a physical just to make sure you're not dying. And they told him,
I don't know.
They told him,
about
in
that.
fact, you're dying. And so he decided his solution was going to be to eat fried chicken and drink bourbon instead of ever eating any sort of noodle, bread, or anything delicious again. I told him we could have somewhere down the middle and I could give you some fish oil and some lectin capsules. And he said, no, I'm doing it my way.
Let me tell you.
So there we were, sitting at Double Fried, eating fried chicken and drinking bourbon.
Dude, someone who's got their mind made up on fried chicken isn't going to say, oh, yeah, what did you say, lentils?
Fish oil?
Yeah.
Fish oil?
Yeah.
No.
It's a hard sell, Coulter.
What are you asking me the vitamin question for?
You need some vitamin D in you, man. You were just a grouchy, curmudgeon, angry radio show host lately, man. Look at your slouch. When Coulter schools you, which he constantly does, and radiates with joy when he finds himself right, you are sulking, man.
I don't know that the words radiate with joy I have ever envisioned applying to Coulter Nuanez. What? Happy, laughing, excited,
man.
Radiating with joy like he's seen a Care Bears episode he had missed somewhere
you've got
in his
a
childhood.
euphoric co-host right over there, and you are sitting here just a sad sack thinking about your vitamins and the onion treatment you've got awaiting you at home.
I'm thrilled. There's calcium and ice cream. I'm fine.
All right, if you say so, man. I don't know.
Boys and girls, have a great Wednesday. We'll reset this mess tomorrow. ESPN Radio.
The Missoula Broadcasting Company presents We Are Missoula. Here's Myron from the living room.
We are doing online sales. We have loaded all of our inventory onto our website, thelivingroomfurniture.com, so you can shop. We are actually here for pickup and or we are doing deliveries. Our guys are wearing full protective gear when they are delivering. We are getting some sales. We're obviously feeling the pinch. And, at this point in time, I do have all my employees at home because I feel it's the best thing to do to try to get past this thing. Some of the other employees are coming into the store and working, but we are doing it one at a time. If so, is it stressful? Of course it's stressful, and I just think it's stressful for everybody. I'm taking it one day at a time and trying to be positive. To very much thank Missoula for being such great supporters of the living room through the 45 years that we've been here. And I would encourage everybody to do their part in getting past this. And I feel if everybody does that, if we do stay home, be very mindful when we are out, I say we will push past this much faster.
We Are Missoula. Missoula. And together, we will get through this.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.